So today I want to talk about the greatest anime of all time. Not Kaiji, but basically Kaiji. I love Kaiji, I love Akagi, right? Two of my all-time favorite animes. They're called phycological animes, and both of these animes, especially Kaiji, are very, very highly praised. However, it exists yet another anime, very similar to these two animes, which almost no one's ever seen, right? And I dare to say, that is better than Kaiji. I am talking, of course, about One Outs, right? So One Outs is an amazing phycological anime, very similar to Kaiji. So if you love Kaiji, I say immediately, guys, go and watch One Outs. The problem, though, is that One Outs is about baseball, right? And here I do think that immediately people underestimate how great the anime is, right? Because I think it's a sport anime. So if you like the video, guys, please subscribe, like button around, comment below, to help the channel out. Now let's talk about One Outs, which is like my favorite anime of all time, right? Especially this genre of phycological anime, which is my favorite genre as well, right? And the thing is that I really do feel that like no one's ever practically seen One Outs, right? Already Kaiji and Akagi are animes that very few anime fans have seen, right? Because they're kind of like psychological, brainy IQ animes, right? But this anime even less, right? And I think the first thing that I address here, right, immediately is, like I said earlier, is a baseball anime. The guy only plays baseball. And the thing is that I think immediately, right, people think that One Outs is a sports anime, right? And technically, they are playing a sport, baseball, but this anime has nothing to do with baseball, actually, kinda. It is much, much more similar to an actual gambling. So as you think about One Outs, it is basically like Kaiji, right? But instead of playing, for money in the sense that, oh, I'm gonna gamble with Janken, or I'm gonna gamble on Pachinko, whatever, right? This guy is gambling with baseballs, right? That's the whole difference, because it's all about gambling, and he has this gambling bets against the owner of the company, and people on the street, and other team members. So it's all about gambling. So really, One Outs is a gambling anime, or then called, psychological, brainy IQ anime, right? With the pretext of playing baseball. I think it's very important to understand here that the anime is nothing at all like other sports anime. It's nothing to do with animes like Yavashi Pedal, Ice Shield, right, whatever. It's nothing like those animes whatsoever. Especially, very important to is that the main character in One Outs, Tokuchi, he's basically like Kaiji, right, or similar. He's a gambler guy. He sleeps with prostitutes and stuff. He's like an anti-hero, right? I think that's probably the main thing that makes it very far different from the normal sport anime, where, of course, the sport, main characters are very kind of typical shonen main characters. They're happy. They wanna be the best at basketball because their mom has cancer or something. It's always a mom with cancer, right? But in One Outs, the main character is like a terrible person, kinda is, right? He sleeps with prostitutes. He's like, I don't want to exercise. He's just like, he want to make money. He want to drink some booze, He's basically, he's like the worst main character ever in a lot of ways, right? He's a terrible person. And that makes it, again, massively different, right? From the basic sport anime, which are all about friendship. But this guy is like friendship, man. But anyway, that's kind of the basic point, right? It is not a sports anime. There's no tropes of sport anime whatsoever, except that, he's playing baseball. What is it about then? Well, why One Outs is an amazing, beautiful anime is because it takes this concept of, I guess, similar, like I keep saying, to Kaiji, right? Kaiji starts with them playing Janken, or then rock, paper, scissors. But in One Outs instead, they to the extreme, where the main character can only throw two kind of balls. Fastball or slow ball, right? So it's very binary. So binary is something like either 1 or 0. So, me as a computer guy, of course, like binary. I can read binary and so on, right? But it's very, very binary. Similar to Janken, right? It's all about, for the batter and the pitcher, right, to guess. If he does 1, I should do X thing. If he does 0, I should do Y thing, right? It's all about that thing. And it sounds very, very simplistic, and it is. But that's the beauty of it. The anime is so simplistic again. The main character only has 2 different attacks, basically, right? Where other pitcher has more, right? He only has 2. However, he always picks the right pitcher, right? So the whole anime is about the main character. He's the greatest pitcher in history of mankind because he only has 2 pitches, fast or slow, and he always picks the right pitch, right? And it's ridiculously OP because then it becomes absurd. Because even if it should be a 50-50 whatever, right? Or like a coin flip, he never does the wrong coin flip. He always gets the right coin flips. Then it's impossible to beat him instead. That is hilariously funny. So that's the basic premise, right? This guy is the greatest baseball player ever, even though he has like the worst pitch ever, because he always makes the right decision making. Immediately makes it not be a sport anime, right? It's not about training, it's not about nakamas, it's not about improving your pitch, whatever. This guy doesn't even train. This guy basically is like, when his team members are like, oh, let's go to a training camp, he's like, no, I wanna slave some prostitutes. And he goes and like rent some horse and have sex instead. Yeah, like straight up in the storyline. Yeah, he's like, nah, I'm gonna go and have sex instead. You're like, well, yeah, it's like, nope, I don't have to improve my skills. Like, he doesn't have any skills. That's the fun thing with it. He's like a bad pitcher. Like, he doesn't have a good fastball, nor a good slow ball. Like, none of them are actually on a high level of that thing, right? But he always, again, makes the right decision making. So it doesn't matter. So he's like, I don't need to train. I only train up here in my brain, right? I only train my manipulative cunning skills, yeah. So like, okay. So that's kind of the basic of it, right? This guy is like a complete douchebag. He does have a little bit of that, say, you know, teeth with a heart of gold, right? So especially in the manga, with anime, actually, unfortunately the anime doesn't cover the full manga, right? Especially later in the manga, he goes and picks up these, I say, washed up, like kicked out players or whatever, right? And helps them improve and train them. He has potential. So he has a little bit of like, he actually does care of people, and he's like a nice guy deep down. And I was the main kid interested because he's an anti-hero. And he's basically is like a bad guy in some sense, right? However, I think he has this morale code of like, he does bad stuff people all the time, but he only does bad stuff to people that deserve it, you know? He's kind of like, he's a kind of, you know, he only assassinates other bad people, kind of ish away. He also does treat people in the beginning though, to some extent, because he also gamble and sharks people in the beginning for their money, so not entirely, but his bigger, badder stuff is mostly when he actually wants to, you know, go for bad people, right? So he's an interesting character. I think he's very, very likable. He's very pragmatic, right? He's a very realistic main character in that sense. But honestly, right, I think that the main character, Tokichi, he's interesting in so many ways because he's actually probably one of the most unique main characters in anime. Seriously, he might be like arguably the best main character in anime. At least most unique one, because he's really is like a terrible person in many ways. But, you know, he has a little bit of some sweet spot, right? So he's very, very realistic because he's, generally speaking, not a good person, but he still want to help, you know, kids or whatever, right? So he has a little bit of like a little compassion deep down. However, he's not like this, like, you know, megalomaniac isekai bad guy. Oh, I want to kill everyone. No, he's like a realistic, you know, somewhat bad person, anti-hero-ish, right? So he's very, very played for reals, right? He's not overly evil. He's just kind of like slightly evil when it suits him, or he's slightly good when it suits him, right? And that also reason I think the anime is very underrated, because the main character honestly is very, very complex. He's not a main character you just watch one episode. You know, this is a main character you really analyze him, right, and be like, oh yeah, this is some depth to a character. So that's one thing, right? Very, very complex character, but also, I mean, the anime is very, very different than, right? You know, like no other main character acts like him, because thing is that while he is similar to Kaiji, as I mentioned earlier, right, and Akagi and so on, the thing is that this guy is really skilled too, right? So I guess it's even more similar to Akagi in that sense, but Akagi is very pure. Akagi is like the best Mahjong player ever, and he only cares about that. And what Kaiji likes to party and have, you know, smashing or whatever, right? This does this guy too, but Kaiji is kind of like, he wins sometimes with some strategy, and otherwise he's an idiot, right? This guy is a super idiot. This is basically like, you know, IQ 300 playing baseball, but also having a terrible personality, right? Yeah, so he's interesting because he's probably, I honestly think he's like the only main character that is like a complete selfish douchebag, but also incredibly skilled at it, right? He never loses a game, and also, you know, he actually is like a successful douchebag. But otherwise, I would say a cat like Kaiji, like I mentioned, right, he is also, you know, selfish, but in the end he is kind of like redeemable because he fails. That makes you like him in the more ultimate survivor, so right. Here instead you have basically the best person ever playing it, and he's just a douchebag. So he actually have a different feel to it. They're very similar, like half and half similar, but he's basically what Kaiji wants to be, right? So, but he honestly, I think he is one of the most unique main characters in anime, because yeah, he's like an actual smart person, which is very uncommon. Main character has been intelligent, right? I actually compared him to popular anime, be like Naruto. he obviously be Shikimaru then. Yeah, he's like Shikimaru if Shikimaru slept with horse all the time instead of sleeping with Temari. Yeah, something like that. He's like Shikimaru if he was evil, you know. So something like that. Yeah, he's like super genius gambler guy. That's like I don't really care, and he's lazy and so on. Yeah, he's like that, and that for the main character, and that's just makes it one comment too. Now, lastly, what makes the anime different too, right? Is yes, you are playing baseball, so it's not only about the 50-50 thing, right? Eventually, he also becomes about cheating and so on. And that's also why it's similar to Kaiji and Kaiji. If you like those animes, you absolutely love anime. Because he doesn't really cheat himself. He has a kind of codex, right? So kind of Bushido himself. But the other team cheats a lot, right? So it's a lot about him being like, well, they are cheating, so I have to pretend that I don't know they're cheating. It's similar to imagine Akagi when he's playing the blind guy. It's like, well, he knows, I know he's cheating with his blind ability, so I'm gonna cheat too, you know, who's the best cheater? Yeah, it's kind of like that, right? So it's a lot of, it's like, haha, I know that you know that I know, but it's not this now. So the anime grows, you know, in complexity, right? Have to lie and so on. And also, he has this bet with the owner of the baseball team. They have to pay him more money depending on how he does in the actual game. So he also is playing the actual baseball game in a specific manner to get more money from the owner. So that kind of stuff also has like a level to it, which I really love. It's like, well, if I do 7 pitches, then I get double salary. So I'm gonna fade on purpose and then win eventually, but I get more paid. So it's like that kind of level of, you know. Or I have to, you know, make it even or draw out or whatever, because maybe he gets double money if it's more game strikes. It's like, I'm gonna not lose purpose, but I gotta make it draw, so we have to play another game tomorrow, then I get more money per day played, I get more money, whatever. So it's like this really weird meta game to it, right? Stuff like that. And then eventually, when he picks up other players too, they have new bets for them as well. So it's like, well, this guy has to now bat, and I will do this thing, so on, right? So that's great. And there's also, as the anime grows, right, the character grows, there's also playing other teams, of course. So now they are all hating him, right? And he learns who they are and so on. So now he has to like teach other people how to counter the other players. And this is amazing scene, which allows him as an anime, where he tells this batter, this a tell. He's like, oh, if you're doing this thing with your ear, I know you're gonna do, you know, this thing. Oh, okay. Or pitcher or whatever, so right. So he tells them this stuff, right, to the pitcher and batter and so on in the other teams. And then he's gonna go and pitch, right, to his batter. And now this guy is thinking about, oh, he told me this thing, so I have to overplay this thing, right? And then it's like, yeah, I ruined his life. So the point is that by doing that, right, he's telling this guy, oh, you have a tell with you this thing, right? That means that guy now is, you know, he's ruined. He thinks about it, right? And then the other guy's like, well, you messed up his brain, so he can't play anymore. He's like, yes, that's right. Everything to win, baby. he's pure evil, man, to some extent, right? But it's such a different anime to watch too. You're like, man, yeah, this character is like, he's the worst, man. He's awesome. But it's also very, very philosophical anime, right, you know? Because you watch it, it has an interesting thing. He's ruining this guy's life, generally speaking. So he's a worse baseball player. Right? Interesting. It's very, very interesting. But anyway, I do think anime is to some extent better than Kaiji, because he's basically like Kaiji, but good, you know. Yeah, he's like if Kaiji was actually a really good player and everything. It really is. Otherwise, it's all the similar tropes, right? And as earlier in the video, it might be baseball, but it's nothing to do with baseball, really. He could play the card games or whatever. Yeah, it's nothing to do with baseball, right? Really isn't. And the only weakness, though, and where I say Kaiji might have an over being better, right, is that, yeah, it would be interesting to see this guy actually playing other stuff, right? He's a master gambler at everything. He's the best like gambler in all sports, whatever, right? So it would be interesting if he actually changed playing the sport after a while. But instead, here the anime is more similar to maybe like Ice Shield or whatever, right? Where you have different teams. So the benefit of not changing the game, because he could play any game, right? But not changing the game and having several seasons of only baseball means that he has rivals and these teams and then these cheaters and these guys. They try to counter him, you know, and so yeah, it has more of a growing world, right? And then we see other two teams playing each other because they're cheating. He's like commenting how they're cheating and so on, right? So the anime's benefit of only staying at baseball means that we actually do care more about the other teams and how they interact with him. And like I said earlier, he can pick up new team members and train them to play like he wants them to play and so on, right? So he has more of a growing world, a lore, whatever you call it, right? And that's the benefit of only playing one game. But otherwise, yeah, that's probably the biggest which is the anime that is only playing baseball, because he could play other games, so that probably maybe would be better if he changed, you know, once the baseball, one season of some kind of card game, right, or whatever. So who knows? But anyway, guys, hope that the video, right, because I think this is one of the best animes ever made. It's one of the animes that no one's ever seen, basically, right? Because Kaiji is really like the pinnacle. Everyone saw like Kaiji is the best anime ever. Kaiji is the best thing ever, right? But I think this anime here is better than Kaiji. Like, straight up. Kaiji, though, is longer in the manga, and I read both, right? And Kaiji always better in the manga, so on. But I love Kaiji, but Kaji's Pachinko season is weak, I think, and this has no weak anime, right? So I think they're both the same episode, 25 and 4, whatever, and one outs only have good episodes. And I think Kaiji is weaker in the Pachinko is the end of its season 2, right? So that's probably what actually the anime beats out on it. However, the manga, I have to be honest here, right? One out's manga does get a little weaker at the end of it. Kaiji actually gets stronger after Pachinko, so a little bit like that, honestly. But as an anime, I think actually One Out is the best gambling psychological anime, because I think it's better than Kaiji all the way through, because Kaiji has like 1 week season, and Akagi, of course, is also very, very good. And, you know, all the animes too with that. But yeah, these are like my top 3, of course, of the psychological gambling animes. And I guess you guys have a great day.